Well, the crisis in Syria shows no sign of abating, with more anti-government violence and bloodshed on the streets. Activists are reporting at least 10 deaths in a number of flashpoints in the past 24 hours. Arab League monitors overseeing the country's peace plan have been visiting various towns to assess the situation. But critics say the group is playing down the reality on the ground. Well, the British-based group Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has been watching events closely. And a short time ago, I spoke to Dr. Mousab Azzawi in London via Skype. Mousab Azzawi, thanks so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
What do you believe this Arab League delegation is achieving in Syria and for Syrians?
Well, basically, you need to look at this from what they could achieve in the first 2 days and consider in the background that the aim of the Arab League initiative is to protect the civilian and stop the killing machine, which did not happen. In the first day, they just visited single neighborhood in Homs for about half an hour and they disappeared. And yesterday, they just repeated the same story. And the people on the ground, they are very furious because every part of the Arab initiative, which is releasing the detainees and also stopping all the killing machine and withdrawing all the military aspects, and thirdly, allowing all the foreign media to enter and move freely in the country, did not happen. So we are very skeptical and pessimistic about their future.
So if that is the case, why would the delegation leader say that he saw nothing frightening?
Well, basically, the question needs to be asked, as you said, was he able to see anything? Because the principle in the Arab initiative that the observers need to go and move freely, which did not happen at all. Every observer is surrounded by at least 10 security forces members. And also the proof that it was frightening and horrific is that yesterday we had 32 persons killed, out of them 6 in Homs, and the observership could not see anything. So we are very skeptical and worried, as I said.
So if that is the case, why would the delegation leader say that he saw nothing frightening?
You need to go back to the history of this man. He was the chairman of the secret security services in Sudan, and he was the superior delegate to Darfur when crimes against humanity committed by the Sudanese government. And when he could not see any crimes against humanity in Darfur committed when he was the chairman and the chief delegate there, it's the same story when he is unable to see crimes against humanity in Syria. We are very, very worried that this person has been elected out of 340 million Arabs to be the chairman of this observership mission. So we don't trust him at all.
In terms of the international reaction to this, only a couple of weeks ago, the UN Commissioner for Human Rights said the Security Council had to act, that the situation was becoming intolerable. Yet it seems as though there are some key players in the international community, including a couple within the Security Council members, are still tolerating this situation. Why?
Well, basically, from a human rights perspective, we agree with the statements of the Human Rights Council. But, you know, for the leading international powers, they are afraid of confronting Iran in the region because they do know that Syria is acting as a forefront of the Iranian regime in the region, and they're thinking that they want to find some kind of compromises. And we don't think this would be realistic because the regime did not show any real will to deliver any political solution. It just has the security forces solution. But what we are looking for and what we are campaigning for is basically 2 things. The first thing, which has been called for by the Foreign Secretary of France, which is a humanitarian corridors to save those people who die on a daily basis because, for example, they don't have antibiotics, or they don't have food, or they don't have medical care. The indirect victims, there are hundreds. People, elderly people, babies, newborn babies die because they don't have any medical care. The other thing we are campaigning for, which is a buffer zone with the borders with Turkey. So the people of Syria, if they are suffering too much, they will be able to seek a resort and a shelter in that buffer zone, which is very easy to be achieved with the borders with Turkey, according to Adana Agreement, which gave the Turkish government 5 kilometers depth of interference without being asked. So we're just asking to revive this agreement.
Now, given all that you've just outlined, and given that some of the residents in Homs were apparently chanting in front of the Arab League observers, "We want to execute President Assad," what hope is there of a peaceful resolution or transition in Syria?
Well, basically, I don't think that there would be any kind of compromise with those demonstrators. When they started their uprising, they just wanted reforms. But when they have been faced by this excess of force, by these torturing machines, by these killing machines, I don't think after they lost more than 5,000 persons, they will not be able to accept any compromises. I think that the only solution now is that this regime, at least the key players in the regime, should step and give the chance for a transition period to happen in Syria, to move Syria to a democratic state from this dictatorship which has been staying for the last 4 decades.
And will that happen?
Well, this is a possibility, because without the support from the international community, it may be difficult, because there is no balance between the power of these unarmed civilians, peaceful demonstrators, and with this massive killing machine. But without the support of the international community, I think that there is a big risk that those civilians will be tempted to hold arms and join those defectors from the army. And if we have militarization of the uprising, I think we would be in a very big risk, because we will be in a civil war situation, and every civil war in Syria will not be limited to the boundaries of Syria, definitely.
Dr. Mousab Azzawi, thank you very much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.